It happens at intersections countless times each day. This car arrives at a stop sign. At the same time, another car arrives and has to stop too. It seems harmless, but we set up this controlled scenario to show you something you probably don't even think about. Something that could cause a catastrophic crash for this car, when the driver of this car simply waves. In our scenario, Dave, who's a producer at Local 12, is behind the wheel of this vehicle. And in this car is Michaela. She's an assignment editor. Michaela's a polite person, so she waits on Dave to drive through. But Dave's a nice person too, and he does what many of us do. He waves to Michaela to go first. During this cordial car moment, both Dave and Michaela miss me. I'm behind the wheel of my car. And because there's no stop sign for me, I go right through. You guessed it. There's a big crash. Some call this an unfortunate accident, but others say Dave caused this crash with that wave, and he should pay. The issue of paying for waving is all about legal liability. So I went to one of Cincinnati's top attorneys, Charlie Ritkers, for answers. Can you be sued for waving?
Well, you can be sued for anything in this country.
Can you be liable?
That's the ultimate question.
But there are no ultimate answers. In some states like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, the courts have opened the door for lawsuits against those who wave you through. In other states like Georgia, suing someone for waving is not allowed. Here in the tri-state, it's much murkier. In Kentucky, you can be sued for your wave based on something called reasonable care, which means proving the person waving took responsibility for your safety. It's similar in Indiana, where the courts say you cannot be sued for a courtesy wave, but you can be sued if you wave after checking traffic. And here in Ohio, the most confusing case law of all.
It's up in the air.
As a general rule, Ohio courts consider waving a polite gesture, but the state Supreme Court and a district court came to two different conclusions at two different times about what that wave means.
One district said it's a question for the jury to decide if the person who waved the other person through can be liable for a crash, and the other court agreed with that decision from the Ohio Supreme Court back in the 60s, saying you cannot be liable.
So it's a confusing conclusion, where paying for waving is all about where you live. As a general rule, you can be sued for waving someone through that intersection. If you said that, you're technically right. Whether you have to pay for your wave, that's an open question. I'm Duane Pullman. The images of the deadly siege at the U.S. Capitol are seared into our memories. So are the faces. In the midst of all this chaos, one familiar face began to be connected with this insurrection. Matthew Heimbach, a nationally known white separatist and neo-Nazi with ties to Cincinnati. Heimbach was identified in this tweet by attorney L. Lynn Wood. I've tracked Heimbach for years, covering the moment in 2016 when he pushed an African-American woman at a Trump rally, and interviewing him in 2017, hours after he helped organize the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville that led to a death.
Anything that happened was self-defense.
So the claim that Heimbach was part of an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol made sense. Or did it? I drove 4 hours to ask him. You weren't at the Capitol.
Nope.
You weren't in D.C.
Nope.
Despite his denial, photos of Heimbach saturated social media, even labeling him as the man behind this mask inside the Capitol. Some national media followed suit too, naming him in articles. Surprisingly, Heimbach says, I was the only reporter who called to ask him.
Well, you actually reached out.
And what did I ask you?
Well, was I there?
And
Which no one else did before they decided to run with the story.
I'm the only one.
The only one. Literally the only journalist that actually reached out to me to ask before they published the story and said, hey, did you try to overthrow the government?
It turns out Heimbach is no longer a leader of a hate group.
I'm not involved in the white nationalist movement, haven't been for over a year, and that was my own choice.
You've actually renounced that.
Yep.
And he says he stopped supporting Donald Trump, too. So you're anti-Trump?
Anti-Trump, 100%.
Chanting to kill us, stabbing us, throwing bleach.
Whatever you think about him, even Matthew Heimbeck can change.
Yeah, my politics have shifted.
Now it's clear Heimbeck did not storm the Capitol. Accusing him of doing that is just plain wrong. While the Reds no longer host baseball's first opening day game, Cincinnati, the city where professional baseball began, continues to get a huge honor.
On opening day, we are America's team. We're still the only team that gets the honor of opening at home.
Some fans say that gives Cincinnati something even bigger, the competitive edge of playing here in front of the home crowd. But is there such a thing as a home field advantage in baseball? Straight off the top, Reds team historian Greg Rhodes confirms there is an advantage to playing at home. Is there a home field advantage?
Yes, there is a home field advantage.
But he quickly adds,
But it's not perhaps as big as you might think it is.
the Society for American Baseball Research studied wins and losses at home for all teams in Major League Baseball for more than a century, from 1901 to 2009, and found the real home field advantage is just 54%. When Sabre drilled down, examining wins at home versus wins on the road for all teams in 5 seasons from 2004 to 2008, Tampa Bay came in first, winning at home more than 17% more than on the road. The Philadelphia Phillies had the lowest percentage, with under 2% more wins at home. The Reds were in the middle, winning slightly more than 9% more of their games here at Great American Ballpark. Despite the fluctuations, the average for home field wins in every decade for all major league teams continues to hover around 54%.
So the home field advantage will sort of even out across a season, across all teams.
The reason the home field advantage is so low, Rhodes says, has more to do with the players than the venue.
I think that how good a team you are will have more impact on whether you win or lose and whether you're at home or on the road, yes.
And opening day is no exception. The Reds are tied with the Tigers for the most consecutive opening day wins in baseball, with 9 in a row from 1983 to 1991. But despite all the parades, parties, and history and home field advantage, the Reds actually have a losing record on opening day. From League Park in Crosley Field to Great American Ballpark, there's only one exception: Riverfront Stadium, the storied home of the Big Red Machine, where from 1971 to 2002, the Reds had an opening day record of 19 wins, 11 losses, and 1 tie. In baseball, it's all about the stats. So if you said there is a home field advantage, you're right. But as the numbers clearly show, that advantage is not as big as many people believe. I'm Duane Pullman.